Welcome, everybody. This is meeting number 38. It's a special meeting tonight for the Clausen Charter Commission. And if we can, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and words of inspiration. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We ask blessings on the people who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Keep in mind, because we all forget from time to time, that we're not only leaders, but also servants, and that it is our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Grant us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and the spirit of love. This we strive for in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Okay, so you ready?
We'll start with Chairwoman Solinsky,
Here.
Vice Chair Boland,
Here.
Dwyer,
Here.
Hanser Maynard,
Here.
Mr. Irwin is not here, Marucci,
Here.
Nasri, Tracy's not here, O'Neill,
Here.
Parker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. So we are going to move on to the agenda for new business. We received a message from the attorney on Friday, May 12th. He had a 3.5-hour virtual meeting with the assistant attorneys, the attorney generals. And he has outlined in his email the things that he had discovered. And he'll be here momentarily, but we'd like to go over some of these things and take a look at where we're at and what some of the suggestions are. And so I guess we can start with section 4.02. You want to start with that? Let's see. No, we don't want to start that. Joe.
Just one question, wherever we start. At some point in time, it's going to take a motion. I have a feeling one motion would be too much to cover these 10 items or 8 items. Should we
19.
deal with them after we discuss one by one, or lump two together potentially, or just something to think about, how we want to do it, so that way it makes, what we do makes sense, and people are very clear on only doing 714 and 808. Now we're going to go, I want to throw that out. Like I said, I feel weird that we would do all 8 or 9 or 10 with one motion, but maybe, if that's the case, I'm happy.
Well, I guess it depends on who was able to read it ahead of time, and
Understood.
if there are more people who didn't read it, we probably should go one by one, just to kind of.
I don't disagree with that. It's just when it comes to, are we in agreement, do we just do nod of head and then pass one very large motion, or adopt a motion after each one? That's all I meant. Not to skip over because I've read it and someone else hasn't.
No, that's, yeah, I mean, that's a good thought.
Well, and Brad's outlined, to his credit, he did pick the ones that said minor change, I'm okay with that. Like it's a word change, and he pointed them out, which ones you can do first.
Yeah, 5.
Then wipe off 5, and then wipe off 2, and then wipe off 7 in motions. And I think that's an efficient way to do it. Then he gets the ones that you really got to crunch on, and those are the ones that John said to really crunch on. So he did a good job of breaking it down in that memo.
I
I would
think
recommend
that
give that
makes sense to start with those sections and just knock those out, and then it will, let's take a little
Small fish.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, one of the commissioners wasn't able to be here with us tonight, and he sent us an email that had information on it of what his ideas are, and he kind of structured it in a way where it made us really easy to follow. So if we just want to start with that, section 4.09.
Yeah, I mean, that's just deleting a phrase. I think that makes total sense. If they think that, deleting that gets the point across and it's unnecessary, then, that's what we want to do, simplify.
And it looks like the attorney agreed with that, so.
Yep.
And then 4.14, they recommended we delete an auditor from the second line. They're concerned that the way this is written, it connotes that the auditor is an appointed officer, not just an independent contractor of the city. And they believe that Charter Section 6.06 adequately addresses the annual audit and engagement of a CPA to perform the audit.
Yep. I think that makes sense, it does read that way, so.
Okay. And then next is 6.06.
3?
6.03, yeah, sorry.
Sure.
So they want us to add the MCL citation to 1943 PA 20. And, yeah. Okay. 7.14, they recommend changing the last phrase, regular course of retail trade to regular course of commerce.
Problem.
Yeah, I don't see an issue. Got it out.
Okay. So that takes care of 4 of them. And then the last, what is considered to be like a quick change, is 8.08. At the end of the section, they suggest we add the phrase, "or as otherwise permitted by Michigan law." And that seems, yeah, to work.
So, Madam Chair, I move that this commission accept the advice of the Michigan Attorney General and this commission's attorney to make the following changes of the charter draft as presented to the Attorney General. Strike without regard to political or religious preferences from section 4.09. Strike an auditor from the second line of section 4.14. Add MCL 1943 PA 20 as a citation to section 6.03. Change in section 7.14 the phrase regular course of retail trade to regular course of commerce. Add the phrase or otherwise permitted by Michigan law to the end of section 8.08.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me. Okay.
All right.
The second batch is 4.23. Some minor wording changes. Let's see, 4.03.
Yeah, see, that you did enumerate, so I'm curious to see what his statements are on that.
Okay, so we might want to wait for him.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Some additional verbiage was requested, okay. 16.07, they suggested some wording changes. Okay, so they don't really say what, so we'll wait for John for that one. 16.
Samantha, you have our draft up.
You know, I don't have the most recent one because I'm noticing some of these things are not aligning section-wise, like as we've moved. I have version 9. I can turn the Wi-Fi back on and try to find it.
It wouldn't matter here because we don't know what
Right.
changes you want. We just look at what it looks like now, so.
I was just looking at 5.13, they want us to delete the second sentence. I know that, so it doesn't sound, that would sound fairly simple, just, you have section 5.13.
You said this, but okay.
Yeah, that's-
You talking about the latest charter?
Yes.
Yeah, my guess is yeah, you have to be,
Yeah,
yeah.
the one I'm looking at skips right over 5.13, so.
Yeah. Got it?
I thought we put those on the shared drive.
We did, but I turned off the Wi-Fi and I just happened to have
Oh,
the
gotcha.
red line version, not the final
Okay.
version in front of me, so.
I can see if
We'll just wait for him then.
This would be a great time for snacks.
Okay, any other? Yeah, he said he'd be here in just a few minutes.
Maybe we could jump ahead to one of like the bigger discussion items and,
Well, how about
Started?
there's two simple, how about 1701 and 1702? 01, they want us to add a sentence or a statement saying that charter will be adopted by a majority vote of the electors. On the back page of John's, for the Charter Commission attorneys.
I don't have an additional battle. Does it sound repetitive?
I am trying to pull up one of the last ones so I can see.
Oh, I see it though, it doesn't, it just says, this charter will be submitted to the electors of the city of Clawson for the approval or rejection at an election to be held on November 2023.
Right, then
So I
he wants us,
understand.
and he wants, said they would like us to add another sentence to say, the passage of the charter will be by a majority vote of the electors. I guess something we assumed is obvious, probably should.
Yeah,
should
I mean,
state.
I don't see an issue with wanting it to be, like, that's transparent, it doesn't give it any, our assumption is what should be done in the right circumstances, so I wouldn't have a problem putting in majority votes.
I'm the same way.
Anybody else?
Which one did we say it was?
1701,
1701.
Wants to add a 1702.
add a sentence to the very end, because Talia just mentioned what was in there, but just add a sentence at the end that only with a majority vote of the electors would the charter be adopted.
That's weird, because I'm looking at the red line version online. I don't see a 1701. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so, okay, did we look at the third batch? Is there anything in there?
That's the very end of the page.
$15.03. In the third line, you recommend that we delete the phrase, together with the cost of prosecution, as the fine costs and relief recoverable in the city ordinance prosecution are governed by the state law, not city charter, and the costs of prosecution are not recoverable under state law.
I'm okay with
I'm good with that.
Same with me.
Oh, so they just want us to.
Appears
they were
very clear,
recommending.
we can't,
I think any recommendation that the Attorney General is giving us as it pertains to like phrases, we should just take it by default. If nothing else, they'll just sweeten the pot for us.
Yeah, it's like free work.
Yeah.
they won't, approve it. Let's make it clear, they won't
Right.
approve it. Even with, if we do 9 out of 10 that they submit,
Yeah.
they're gonna say, guys, I guess you didn't read too clearly
Right.
our recommendation.
Right.
Recommendation.
That's
Hey,
anything
that's
else?
why they're
But,
where they are.
well, how about 1503? Do you wanna discuss it? Do you wanna move on it?
Yeah, let's
Let's move.
And wanna wait, or wanna move?
move.
We can
Move?
add
I feel the same way about 1701.
1701 also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
Yep.
have those two written down now as the next move. So you seem to agree on it, so.
Samantha, you
Yeah.
wanna lead, or do you want me to lead?
Go ahead. Keep that the last
I'll make a
one.
motion that section 1503, and that in the third line, we take the recommendation of the AG's office and remove the phrase "together with the cost of prosecution." And in 1701, to add a statement that the passage of the charter will be by a majority vote of the electors.
Second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That was 1503 and 1701, correct?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Second or what?
Okay, he's 1 mile away.
Yeah, I'm curious what he says about 1105 too. Because that was something that was amended only 2 years after. What is that one? I don't remember.
Oh, is that the one that you researched, August?
Yeah, you were talking
They
about
believe
that
the
earlier.
second sentence of the section reads very awkwardly and that its intent is unclear. I tend to agree, but also note that the charter section was amended in November.
Yeah, 2 years later, they amended it, and they were kind of like, thought something
Well,
might have
assuming
weird,
that's a
so I
typo.
contexted it, and I can. It's because the city wanted to enter into a sanitation district with the communities around us, with Berkeley, Royal Oak, Lathrop Village, and a couple others. And there was nothing in the charter that said they could join their services with other cities, so they put in a little thing. And I actually included it in the packet, the part that I found online, that's from like 1942, where it says that we amended the charter, so we can do this, let's do this. And so that's what it was all about. And it kind of read that way when I saw that they wanted to be able to get to an agreement, which I think everyone takes for granted now, because we kind of been doing it anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what that was. That was like the first of those. Probably because they were building this town out at the time. It was all farmland. They're starting to build out, and they didn't want to pay for a full boat of garbage, men, and wanted to share services. So,
And that makes sense.
yeah. After I sent it to John, he said, you didn't say anything about else, but, well, cool,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, they say it reads awkwardly.
And
Okay.
you guys added a provision to make it just says, the city can enter into any agreement with other communities as needed. There was that whole line you guys added in
At
there.
the
Yeah,
very-
so
at the
maybe
beginning, I
this-
think, wasn't that at the
It
beginning?
was, I distinctly remember you guys doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was at the beginning, a very general
So
statement.
is this whole section just moot then,
To-
perhaps?
In my opinion, yes, but we'll get the opinion of the attorney.
Okay.
And if the attorney general thinks it's kind of strange, well,
Yeah, right.
But that's why that was done in
Well, he didn't
42.
say get rid of it, he just said it's awkwardly worded.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, because it's like a giant block of like, I don't even see where the first sentence ends.
Can
It's a
you,
bit of a doozy.
can you read a couple of sentences for us? please?
Sure.
I don't know where it ends either.
The city council, upon the concurring vote of a majority of its members holding office, shall have power to contract from time to time with any city, county, metropolitan district, or other political subdivision, or any agency of the foregoing for the disposal of sanitary and/or stormwater sewage from the city for a period of not to exceed 40 years, provided that before authorizing the execution of any such contract, the city council shall cause a copy of the same to be deposited with the city clerk and a notice of such deposit to be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the city at least once, not less than 10 days prior to such authorization. That is the first sentence.
Oh, my God.
You did it one
I
breath.
was gonna say, that sounds like a pretty good paragraph, but that's
Yeah.
That's a
So,
one-on
I'm so
sentence.
glad nobody deposits things to city clerk's office
Right?
anymore, especially in the sanitation department.
And then, so the second
Jeez.
sentence, that's not the sentence they thought was worded confusingly. It's the second sentence that says, the contract as so deposited may be amended before execution without further notice. The contract as so deposited may be amended before execution, yeah, that's weird. So you have to do all this stuff to approve
yet you
the
could change it
contract, but then you can just change it
the
with
night
no
of the meeting without
notice?
telling anyone.
Yeah, that is extremely
So
shady.
then that amendment passed in like November of 42, and
Yeah.
in January of 43, they entered into the agreement with the other cities to do the sanitation
Okay.
district.
That, the amendment was that whole section that she's reading?
Yeah.
No such
That
contract
was a charter.
after it has become effective shall be declared invalid for want of any such contract shall not constitute an indebtedness of the city within the meaning of any charter limitations. The city council shall impose rates, charges, and/or assessments upon the users and beneficiaries of sewage disposal services and facilities sufficient to promptly meet the obligations under such contract, but in event the receipts therefrom are not sufficient to pay all sums when due under the contract, then the city shall be responsible for any deficit. Such rates, charges, and/or assessments shall be made and the payments thereof enforced.
Oh, my God. Are you still,
By any method permissible by law.
that's not
That's
still
a
the
run-on
first, that's not still the first sentence.
No,
is it?
no, it's not.
That's the second one.
It's the third, but,
Yeah.
It's not a sentence.
but yeah, it's, as soon as that passed, they entered into agreement in that January, so that's for. And those 40 years are up, so I don't think that's that's
Right?
necessary anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been at the meeting.
No, I'm sure they entered into something else.
80 years.
you know,
Well, yeah, isn't that what like
Since
Sakwa and
1982.
Sakra and
Yeah.
stuff is? I mean, how long are, I mean, those are deals, I assume are redone on a
I
probably
think for 20 years.
decade
Yeah.
plus, yeah.
I like that first sentence.
They made the change, yeah, they moved it to accept the recommendations. Okay. And then, I don't know if you saw Brad's guidelines, but there it is. They're kind of following that.
Hello, everybody, sorry I'm late. I have
Sorry.
depositions that unexpectedly ran late. This is how the day's been going.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I can probably go through this pretty quickly. It sounds like you've already gotten a head start. I can just tell you in some, at the meeting with the Attorney Generals, they impressed me. They were farther along than I expected. They had thoroughly reviewed things. We ended up we met, it was a 3.5-hour meeting with 2 assistant attorney generals going through it. There's no major changes. There's a few things we need to do just to be faithful to what the law says and so on, like the one, did you get to the one yet about the mayor being the chief executive officer? You know, that's something we had in there, and then we just took it out because there was concern about how that might be construed, but the long and short of it, it's in the Home Rule Cities Act. So whether we say it in the charter or not, the mayor is the chief executive officer. So they wanted us to put that back in. A number of the other changes they made were more, I think, just preferences as opposed to requirements. In some cases, I thought good suggestions. Others, I thought, okay, guys, really? You know, it's like,
Right.
you know, are you writing this charter or is the Charter Commission writing this charter? But yeah, it's one of these things, the smoothest path to getting this through is if they're not changing things substantively and if they're not giving us major heartburn, it's probably best to just try to go along so that we can get a favorable recommendation from the AG's office and approval from the governor. I don't want to risk missing that by haggling over a semantical word choice
I didn't
type
find
of
any of these
argument.
things alarming by any
No,
stretch.
and believe me, there were a lot more things that I mean, you're just seeing what we end up with.
Okay.
90% of their stuff, we talked through it, just said, no, we don't need to do that. Here's why we're doing this, here's why we're doing that.
So they just
And they
needed
ended up,
understanding.
they ended up agreeing, yeah. And then part of it too is, you know, we didn't try to rewrite the whole charter word for word. We tried to live within the existing charter as best we could and make the changes we thought we needed. So, yeah, I mean, is there better ways to turn a phrase? Certainly. But we tried not to tinker where tinkering wasn't needed, you know, the old if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. But that didn't stop the Attorney General from thinking, well, we could phrase this and word this differently. So anyway, so you've already gone through, how far?
We
So we
kind
did,
of,
go ahead.
we didn't go in order. We'd use this outline that was in
okay.
front of us, so.
Well, okay, so let me just go through. So 4.02 about the, so what that one is, basically, if we go back to the version of section 4.02 that I had in Charter version 7, that's what they want.
Okay.
Remember, that's where we started, I've got it right here in front of me, where we talked about, we kept basically the current language that the mayor holds office for 2 years, and, you know, we elect two council people every 2 years. And then I had the second paragraph that said, commencing with the 2025 election, and that's where we changed the numbers. Now, what we decided as a group at a more recent meeting is, let's put all that transitional stuff at the end. The Attorney General found that more confusing. And again, it's something we could debate with him. I think it's easier just to go along and revert back to, like I said, I had to go back. I couldn't remember whether it was Charter version 7 or Charter version 8. I knew it was in one of those. It was Charter version 7. So that's all that was about. We just talked about the mayor and the chief executive officer. Did you talk about 4.09 where they just thought the
That one's done.
phrase about, the political or religious preference, they just thought that was surplusage, that if we just put a period after, based on fitness and quality, that said enough. We didn't need to say more. Deleting the auditor, That seemed like a good one, because at one time, maybe the auditor was, on the city staff, but that's not how we do it anymore. It's completely, it's an independent contractor situation, but the way that phrase currently reads, or excuse me, that section currently reads, it's as though the auditor would be an appointive officer of the city. We don't want that. So I think we just take that out, and then we're good.
Yep, so we made 2 motions already.
Okay,
And the first motion covered section 4.09,
414,
414,
603,
okay, 603, so we won't talk about that. That's just adding a citation.
yeah, 714,
Yeah.
714, that's just a word change.
and 808.
808, yep, that's,
Yep,
okay,
those
good.
five.
Then they did 1701
First pass.
Wow, you guys are flying.
1503.
and 1503. they did.
Wait a minute, 1701.
1503 and 1701. They took your recommendation.
Oh, right, I got it.
Yeah, because those were
I'm
seemed like way over.
Right.
together.
Yeah, and those are just, yeah, they're things I'm like, really, but, they're like chicken soup, they may not help, but they don't hurt. Okay, good.
What we weren't sure was, when you go to section 4.23, we were
Yeah.
wondering what the minor wording changes were.
4.23, let me get there. Oh, real simple. They want to add, well, the added language, you can see how we deleted the first, the first 3 sentences? And then we add the sentence, compensation of elected officials shall be determined by, and they want us to replace A with the cities. They want to say, shall be determined by the cities. Local officers, compensation commission established by ordinance, and then they want me to cite the ordinance. That's all.
Easy.
Minor.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
Okay.
So non-substantive change, one of those, like really, but
Okay.
easy enough to add.
That's the same thing with 430. I just said you had a generic.
430, 430, they actually wanted to add, so that the 430 is where we're talking about the conflicts of interest and ethics, and we added that whole new section. They just want to add a preamble to that would say something to the effect, in addition and subject to the governing provisions of, and they want me to just cite the state law. And then a colon.
Okay.
So, another easy peasy one.
So should we move to do 4.23 and 4.3? Okay. Madam Chair, I move to make the changes recommended by our attorney to section 4.23 and 4.30.
Second?
Discussion, can we add 4.05 in there as well?
Oh,
Which was?
Yes.
yes. I amend my motion to make the change, add back in the phrase chief executive officer of the city per state law. Well, you know what, Brad has some thoughts on that though. Should we discuss that?
Yes, absolutely.
So don't you get a second?
Aaron's second.
I'll go, yeah,
With the amendment?
second,
Okay.
I'm okay with the addition.
You're good.
Yeah, because I was curious, because I was reading, he asked, and I thought this was a very fair question. He noted that the model city charter names the city manager, the chief executive officer of their city. So his question is,
Yep.
do we just have to have someone that has to be labeled the chief executive officer of the city, or does it have to be the mayor?
The Homo Cities Act prevails over a model city charter.
Okay.
The model city charter is written for use in all 50 states potentially, but your state law controls, and that is one that we have to make.
Okay, then, yeah,
Right.
then let's let it stand as the motion is then. Does anybody has any other thoughts or questions?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just to kind of stay in order, I seem to have omitted it from my list, but if you take a look at 4.28,
Yeah.
That'd be nice, yeah.
where do I have it?
It's on, yeah, under,
Yeah, they wanna know if someone's incapacitated.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's the issue. And it's kind of funny, because when I saw that, I looked at a whole bunch of other charters, and I find nobody really mentions that, but I think it's a fair comment that, we're saying a vacancy exists when someone dies, resigns, is removed from office, convicted of felony, but we don't mention, well, what if they're legally capacitated? Somebody has a closed head injury or something and is not, or stroke is more likely.
Yeah, I mean, that seems
So I-
difficult to define.
Well, I think what you do is you say, if we were to add the term, this is one of those they're suggesting, we're not required to do it, but I think there's some merit to it. And I think just adding to that list of dies, resigns, blah, blah, if you say legally incapacitated, that has legal meaning in
Sure.
Michigan. It means you have been adjudged by a court
Okay.
to be incompetent.
Power of attorney takes over or something else, someone else makes
Exactly.
decisions for you.
Right, and we don't want that. We don't want
Yeah.
some guardian coming in here
Right.
and saying, I'm the
I'm the mayor
guardian for Councilman
I'm the
so-and-so,
captain now.
and I vote no. It's like, no, we don't
Just have to
want
pull the
that.
plug, right?
We don't want that.
This says I made
No,
decisions.
if you're legally incapacitated,
That makes sense.
your office is
Right.
vacant.
Don't like
Have
joking about it,
something
but I
in
think
there.
that should be, and we just did
Well, when you
it.
think about it, it's a fair question, because it could happen. People have accidents, people have medical issues,
They just want that
happens.
word added.
Yeah, just add legally incapacitated, so.
Makes
And
sense.
that would cover for the mayor as well, because don't we have
Yes.
a provision about mayor pro tem?
Yeah, this is about any elective office.
What's the language on when the mayor pro tem, when the mayor's no longer capable or something like that?
No, it's usually just present.
Okay, but I thought there was a provision that the mayor, in our charter that
Oh.
had like a sentence that said when the mayor's is no longer able.
Yeah, it isn't just the mayor not being there.
Right, no.
If the mayor's on vacation, that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that the mayor pro tem can come in and say, I'm in charge now.
Right.
Here's
But to
what's
your
going
point,
on."
if the mayor is
Month.
incapacitated, then where is the opening? Is the mayor pro tem then the mayor and then the opening is with the council member? Or is the opening with the mayor?
The opening,
Like a
in my
vacancy.
immediate answer to that, without even looking into anything, would be the openings with the mayor pro tem is running a meeting.
Okay,
That's
The
correct.
seat is the mayor's seat. It's
Okay.
voted on separately, but as far as running sharing the meetings is what the mayor pro
Okay.
tem is doing.
that
mayor-
is a ceremonial thing.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
The
sharing
mayor pro
meeting.
tem, and well, it's a little more than ceremonial, but there are attorney general opinions on it. The mayor pro tem can basically handle the routine duties
Sure.
of the mayor during, the mayor's time away. But that doesn't mean the mayor pro tem comes in and has all the powers.
Don't become the mayor.
Yeah, they don't become the mayor.
Well,
They're
then that's
just,
fair enough.
they just keep things like, for instance, the mayor pro tem would be able to sign a check or something if the mayor's supposed to co-sign. That would be an example of a routine duty. Or there's an attorney general opinion that says mayor pro tem can perform marriages, that kind of stuff.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to add the phrase legally incapacitated to section 4.28.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What do we have next? 5.13?
Yep.
And this was a good catch on their part, and it's kind of a hyper-technical one, but let me get there. I said 5.13.
Yeah, they just want us to delete the second sentence.
Yeah, because here's what's going on. The Michigan recall law has been revised. And it's something when we were looking, we didn't talk really about this section, so I didn't really look at it. It's something I probably should have picked up on. It used to be, under the old law, that when somebody got recalled, say a council member got recalled, their office was vacant, and then you would have a second election. So you have the election recall, then you would have a second election to fill
Fill
that
the
spot,
seat.
right? So how do they do it anymore?
No.
Now it's combined. Now you have a recall
and
election.
elect, yeah.
Saw that.
You have a recall election, and at the same time, the person being recalled is running along with any competitors. And basically, whoever wins, wins. So
Sure.
so technically, when I said it's
Schwarzenegger got
hyper-technical,
elected, isn't it?
so technically, there is no vacancy after a recall, because it's immediately automatically filled. So, simple solution, delete sentence 2. Everything else is fine.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation to delete the second sentence from section 5.13.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we already did this, 1, 2, 3.
Keep it legal.
We did 808, right?
Yeah, didn't really do 4.02 up front. That was,
Yeah, that's kind of a,
that one was kind of skipped over. Do you want to wait till the end?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
a good
okay.
idea.
Yes.
Because they're trucking along, and there'd be 810 next. That's on my list.
Oh, okay. 810. Yeah, okay, let me get to that. And some of this bonds stuff is really antiquated.
No money is received from the sale of any bonds.
Oh, yeah, so it's not really, it's not a state law conflict or anything, but they were asking the question like, why? Why do you have this in your charter? And I just said, good question, but there must have been a concern way back when. Because basically what this is saying is so we can go out and bond, to provide funding. We can issue bonds to provide funding for any public improvements. Okay, roads, streets, infrastructure, whatever. But then this next sentence is saying, no monies received from the sale of any bonds issued for any permanent public improvement shall be used for maintenance. So they asked the question, I thought it was a good question, well, wait a minute, you're going and letting the city issue bonds to say, put in some new roads, but you're saying we can't use any of that money toward maintenance
to
of
me, it
those
sounds
roads?
like, okay, let's go out and get a bond to fix the sidewalks, and then whoops, our snow plows break down and we need to replace them.
It sounds to me
I
more
think
like
it
we're not
sounds
gonna
like they're
hire
saying
Jimmy to be
you
the master, to be the maintenance, sidewalk maintenance guy.
Yeah.
Like they used to hire one guy to run a whole project.
That's what I'm thinking, there was
That's what it
more
sounded like.
to
Like
this,
to
because
prevent, the money being
ordinarily,
used in a different way that is not earmarked.
because but for this provision, but for this sentence, I would tell you if I was a city attorney, bond counsel would tell you that, yeah, when you go out for a bond issue to put in roads or so on, it would include, things that would be reasonably inferred from that as well, which would mean, maintaining those roads that you just paid for, that if you got the money, you can use it for
Well, in a
that.
bond, there'd be specific language.
But it would be
Oh, I'm sorry.
tied, but it would be
I'm sorry.
tied to the public improvement.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
couldn't use money, road bonds to buy, we have some extra, let's use it to fix the snowplow, or let's use it to fix the, fire truck would be a better example,
Right.
something totally unrelated. Or let's spend it on the park, or whatever. It's like, no, if you're using it we just put in these new roads, now we got this money and we want to apply it to seal coat the road that we just put down, so we get another, just however many years out of it. So just a question, that, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, we can leave it in. We could take it out, there was probably some thought behind it, but I don't know what it was at the time.
The public improvements I've been involved in, once you build it, you've spent that money. Just assuming,
Usually.
you bond for $1 million, and baby, I spent $1 million on the road, because that's what I thought it'd be. I don't anticipate using bond money, even if there's some left over. I say then continue a little bit more public improvement, what that is. If we're only gonna do a mile of road, and we find out the bids came in good, we're gonna do 1.5 miles. But that idea of, we're gonna save some money, and for maintenance, therefore we can relieve our general fund of spending money on that. That to me, it's like, I personally don't like it, because all of a sudden someone says, well, why don't we buy a piece of equipment, such as a joint sealer, that we can use to joint seal, and when you improve a road, the road's pretty good for probably 10 years, till anything needs to be done to it. And I think at 10 years, you've spent your money, that you should put some money away, saying, well, at 10 years, we're gonna have to joint seal, so why don't we save a little bit so we can joint seal? I'm just concerned, I think, let's spend it on the building,
Yeah.
the road,
That
the
to me
sewer
is
system.
what that's saying, spend it for what you said you were gonna spend it on, so
And
it's
in
just
most-
tuck it away for a rainy day.
In most
Right.
cases, I think that's correct, but the money's either going to be spent, or if it's not spent, what the common practice is, that whenever you have excess, and it's usually the opposite, you usually didn't bond for enough.
Right, yeah.
But
Right.
any excess you usually use to immediately pay down the bond. You don't say, well, what can we spend this down? It's like, no, let's,
Right.
Yeah.
let's apply
Right.
this to pay down the bond principal that we have to pay back over
Yes.
so many years. But I'm just saying there could be, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but there could be the possibility that they could be used for
The
maintenance.
way the
but-
first sentence is worded, it does make that second sentence seem a little unnecessary, because it says, and apply exclusively to the purpose for which the bonds are authorized. Doesn't that cover?
Well, it
Cover it
could,
all?
and you could conceivably have a bond issue that the community might go out to say, whatever, a $10 million bond issue to pay for new roads and maintenance of existing roads. I mean, it could be part of a package where the council's going, we're gonna completely rebuild these,
Yeah.
but then we plan on these other roads that are rated a little better, we want to be able to, to seal coat or patch those, which is maintenance. So I think there's always that ability to, in the bond question itself, the bond proposal that we put out to the voters, the council can be as specific or as broad as
It's interesting
it
too.
wants to be, whatever the voters will approve.
Wayne, what was your thoughts on that? You had your hand up.
You see what's going on in Clausen right now where they're patching the roads? That's maintenance.
Yes.
Where's the money
So-
coming from?
They use that, that's not bond money. That's
Act
they-
51 money.
Act 51 and general
That's
fund.
just
It's general.
general fund and/or Act 51 money. What they're saying is, if you're gonna bond for a permanent improvement, means you're gonna put a new road in. It's a permanent improvement. So you can go back and say, well, you can't put this money aside, come back and maintain it. That's not what they mean. What they meant by that is, you're not gonna, unless you specifically say, you're not gonna go out and start fixing pieces of road here, there, and everywhere. If,
With that money.
with that money, you
Yeah.
could, like Joe said, if you're gonna do a mile of road and you bond for a mile of road, and you got more money, which I don't know how in the hell you'd do that, you got money left over, you'd defease the bond, you'd pay the money back.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I think what Wayne says is probably correct, that they wanted to make, there might have been concern at the time, we didn't want to bait and switch, people think they're voting for new roads, and they're approving this, and all they're getting is cold patch.
Well, back in 1940,
Put a statue of the charter
Yeah.
you're putting curb and gutter
It
in.
says
Yeah.
permanent public.
You're putting in
improvement
brand
too,
new
so
roads,
it's-
Right,
it's
exactly.
very
That's why
specific.
people said, yeah, we
There aren't
want
gonna be
that.
very many permanent
We
public
want that.
improvements
We-
in this
you know,
city
don't-
that's built.
Don't put oil down on the maintenance of a road. They did that for dust control, did you know that?
Oil?
Oh, yeah, they did it back in the 70s when I was in
Yeah, I was gonna say, it wasn't that long ago that they
Yes.
used oil for dust control, which,
Fully leaded.
For
or
what?
sprayed it.
for
Oil.
dust control on dirt roads.
Oh, for dust, I remember that, when I was a kid,
What do
yeah,
you think
yeah.
causes
That'd be a big no-no
They,
now.
they used that in South Redford.
Do you know what we did in the
Yeah.
Southfield? They took salt that was left over.
Yeah.
They took rock salt and put that down on these unimproved roads. And you couldn't even put a scat fire bait into them, they got so hard. They're like a concrete road.
Yep.
Okay, so what's your recommendation on that one then?
Well, I wanted to bring it out to you. I don't have any problem with leaving it alone.
I don't either.
I like it.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring it to your attention.
I think it's good.
I mean, I don't think it ties our hands in a way. I mean, if the council wants to put a question to the voters to go out for bonds for road maintenance, they can ask that specifically, and the voters can approve it or not.
So we're not making a change, so we don't need a motion?
No.
That's what I was gonna say, I agree.
Okay.
We don't need a motion to keep what we have.
So 10.05 is next.
10.05 has to do with sidewalks. They just raised the question, since we took out the other sidewalk provisions, why did we leave that in? We took out the following section, immediately following on 10.06 sidewalks, as well as a section after that about street names, because we felt that those were, or could be better handled, in fact, already are being handled by city ordinance. We didn't need to say it in the charter. when I looked at 10.05 and we left that in, it's because I thought, well, that's putting a specific restriction on the city, which may or may not still be of current concern, but basically what that section is saying is that if we charge somebody, or especially assess somebody to put in a sidewalk, and they pay for it, and then the city comes along later and changes the grade around there and says you got put a new sidewalk in, it's basically saying, the city does that, city's got to pay for it. You can't go back to the homeowner twice to say, pay for this sidewalk when the second time is only necessary because the city decided to change the grade. Now, I suspect that at the time because this is one of those provisions you won't see in a lot of other charters, it seems to be kind of, in every charter you look at, there's always something unique that you go, okay, there'd be something going on in Clawson back at that time where somebody said, we definitely have to have this put in there. And I think this is one of those. I don't know if it's still relevant enough that, we could just take it away or take it out, or whether by taking it out, residents might view that as a takeaway of some kind. So again, it's one of those we don't have to do anything with. They're just asking the question. If the feeling is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yeah.
then let's just move on.
I mean, given that we will be building some, probably a new subdivision on the Shalom site, I think it's smart to leave in things like this that protect residents from
Okay.
potential
Does.
issues.
Okay. 10.05, 11.05. Let me look at that. Remember what that one is.
No action on 810?
Oh.
Yeah, no action on 10.05.
So 11.05, that's a mess. There's a lot of language in there that I think
That's what I was reading. When you
doesn't need to be there. In fact, I think where this comes from, this is the section, 11.05 was added. August did some legwork for me, some research. And this section was actually added by amendment in 1942. So only 2 years after the current charter was adopted, this got added. And if you look at it, what it's talking about, it must have been right about that time. In fact, August found the,
I explained it all
you already
to him.
explained it. So-
They
so-
passed in 42, and in 43, they entered into the sanitation district right away.
Right, so my thought on that is we could probably delete a big chunk of this. I would say, let's see,
Well, we added a section that said the city can enter into any agreements
Right.
they want with other communities and entities.
yeah, I
governmental
think
stuff, so.
we can,
the whole
we
thing
could
go.
delete, or we could delete that entire section. I was initially concerned that there might be some outstanding bonds or whatever tied to that, but then I just thought there wouldn't still be any outstanding bonds from 1940.
Let's find the section that we added that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's in the
and
front.
To make sure that you have it in that, I
Yeah,
agree,
let's
I agree.
reread it and make sure
3.02.
it covers us, and then.
3.02 is talking about intergovernmental cooperation.
Because the city may join or participate by contract or is otherwise permitted by law with any other governmental units or agencies in the performance of an activity, service, power, or duty that the city is required or authorized by law to undertake.
Yeah.
That seems pretty broad, so I
think
agree that we're probably fine. to
Yeah,
just
what,
delete.
I'm not sure I want to delete the entire thing, though. I think
Okay.
the first half, because the second half of it, thanks August, is talking about how the city council can impose rates and charges and assessments
yeah,
for the
that's
users of the
necessary.
sewage disposal services and facilities. I might need to tinker about that a little bit. You know what? Maybe the whole thing can go. I'm bouncing around, I apologize.
It's okay.
Like I said, this is a mouthful of a section that you have to read a few times. Got a number of things going on in there.
So, I have a question. You feel that the sentence that we added at the beginning, sentence or two, is comprehensive enough to cover?
Yes.
Obviously, you could tell this was done for very
Yes.
specific reasons.
It was.
It wasn't done for.
Yeah, and it
roads
wasn't-
and
right.
It's done for sewage treatment. So I'm fine with taking it out if you believe the first paragraph is sufficient. or the one that
I
we
think
added.
it is. I think it is.
Well, what about the levying the imposed rates, charges, and assessments
That's talking about a
Stuff.
particular contract. I mean, I don't think there's any harm in leaving that in, Samantha. It's one of those,
I mean, as long
it's
as
maybe bootstraps.
Is that
or
covered
what,
somewhere
suspenders
else?
and belt and suspenders.
That, I mean, there's gotta be something else that authorizes the city to charge residents for,
We have an ordinance that does water rates,
okay.
and the state law allows the city to adopt a
Yeah.
millage for
And
trash.
And it's not
removal.
necessary to be
there-
in a charter, we're covered by
Yeah,
state law.
there's a couple
and
of state
ordinance.
laws that authorize us, in fact, not only authorize us, require us to charge
Right.
fully and to charge every resident for the cost of water and sewer and that sort
Isn't
of
that a
thing.
calculation that comes from? someone?
Finance director to the city manager, who then to the council. Yes, based on what Detroit.
I think what you're talking about, I mean, the way it works these
From the
days
Detroit.
is that, well, it used to be the Detroit Water and Sewer, now it's GLEWA. In GLEWA sense, in fact, the council, I wouldn't be surprised if they're adopting the water rates tonight.
Usually when the
It's usually around
budget's
this time
adopted,
of year.
the water rates are
GLEWA
adopted too.
GLEWA, which is who the water is, that's the Great Lakes Water Authority, sends, here's your new rates, and they send it to all their customer communities, and we adopt them. Now, the locals can add to those, because you gotta pay GLEWA. Once in a while, the communities will add something, for instance, if you wanna build up your capital reserve. Or if, like one community at a meeting I was at last night, has a lot of lead line replacements that they still have to do, so they've taken the GLEWA rates and then they've added some additional components in to the rates they're gonna charge their
Not that I wanna
residents.
get into that,
I
but
probably
wanted
said
to
way more than you
understand-
needed,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wanted to. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Right.
More than
Okay,
anybody
so-
cared to know about water rate
No, but
calculations.
that was interesting because something had
They
come
give
up
a full
like a few
picture.
years back regarding that. Not
Yeah.
to discuss,
I
but,
remember that.
yeah, okay. So 11.05, did we decide that we were going to,
Take it out, 'cause that's why we were leaving.
is that your recommendation now after
I'm
discussing
heading
it?
towards it.
I looked to see what Brad said too, to make sure his opinion is considered, and his, to sum it up, is like shrug emoji, because if the language is so confusing as to be meaningless, then the sentence
Yeah,
is no
I-
meaning and is therefore useless.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking take it out.
We're so philosophical about it though.
Wanna make the mo-
No, go ahead, you make that.
I'll make the motion that we remove section 11.05 from the city charter in its entirety.
Support.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay. Section 13.08.
1308, we can shorten that considerably. This is talking about, I guess this is derived from the Home Rule Cities Act, but it goes much further than what the Home Rule Cities Act does. And it's basically what this is saying is that when we allow somebody to put in utilities, poles, wires, whatever, within our rights of way, which we control, if somebody else wants to come in, we can require them to co-locate, to use the same poles, use the same wire, to the extent that's reasonably feasible. And we can require that. And that's really all we need to say. So I'm suggesting for 13.08 that if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, where you'll see the fourth line starts reasonable rental therefore, I would just change that to reasonable compensation therefore, period, and delete the rest. Because this just goes on and on and on and on. And basically, what I just told you is consistent with what the state law says. That the city council has the power to require anybody holding a franchise from the city to use its poles, so on and so on, in the right-of-way. The city can require them to allow those to be jointly used upon paying of reasonable compensation by the other user. Makes sense. And I think we can just say it that simply.
I'll make a motion to amend it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain, Wayne.
Huh?
I have to abstain because I work for a utility company, so mark it as abstain, please.
That's the 7th. one,
Okay,
right?
Seems like it's been more than that.
Well, because the first two were grouped.
Yeah.
So,
last one, 17.02.
okay, so 16.07, I think is the next one.
did you already do 15.03?
Yep.
Yes.
You did.
That was the
All right.
second motion.
Okay, 1607.
Word changes.
1607 is, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, 1507, 1607.
So they had some wording changes.
Minor things again, and I'll just go through them real quickly. Second line, where it says mode of publication is not prescribed by this charter or by law, they just want it to say by law. So strike this charter or by.
That's it?
Okay.
That's one. And then in the next line, after that, the third line, they want that to read, publication shall be by posting prominently in at least 5 public places, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's one of those that I thought, this is ridiculous,
Really?
guys, but, you know.
That's what it kind of says.
I know, but they were playing wordsmithing with me, and it's a minor change. They just
Bureaucrats.
thought it reads better to say, the city council may determine that such publication shall be by posting prominently in at least 5 public places within the city, and so on.
Okay.
Whatever.
And the only other thing they changed there is in that next sentence where it says they also may be determined, they want to replace they with the city council, which is a good change.
Yeah. Okay, Madam Chair, I move to make the language changes recommended by the Attorney General's office.
Second.
16.07.
I have a question. Were they specific about 5 places?
No, just, you determine the places of prominence.
But there has to be 5, she's asking.
Yes. Oh,
And is that
That's a
common?
state law?
I haven't seen it in a long, long time. I think the DDA has some, when you
That's
adopt the
5,
DDA.
I see it vary, I've seen it range from one place to multiple places.
Doesn't the DDA
Like, what
statute
are
talk
5
about it?
places?
So you choose them, so it'd be like if you had a kiosk downtown,
Right, but I'm saying like, in reality, right now, how are we doing it?
One would be
Like, on
City
the
Hall,
doors
front
of
door.
city, yeah. So
fire
there's one.
department could be another one.
fire department, and then
Library.
yeah, library's
I'm
another
just
one.
curious if that's actually happening and how that's actually being
All the
facilitated.
bars.
Like, does the city's website counts as one, I assume?
Now it would,
Yeah.
probably.
The library.
That'd be a question for August, whether
Yeah, I know,
we're
I
actually
wish we had
doing
gotten
it
to
or
that when he
not.
was
You
here.
know,
I'm curious
some
if we
places
do
have a
that.
kiosk downtown, and you
Right.
post the notice on the kiosk.
Right, but we don't. We've got that sign in the park that doesn't get updated, like, I'm
Right.
just curious if it's just we stick it on
And
the door. and call it
arguably these days, the website would count as one.
Yeah,
Right? City Hall is 2,
WebEx?
library's 3,
What's that?
fire
Well,
department is
just say,
4,
just whatever our.
The Clausen homepage.
Website, the
Library,
homepage.
DPW could be 5.
Yeah.
The
It'd be
library.
a question for August, though, whether we're actually observing that and following it, and if so, he'd
well, I
tell
mean, yeah, it's
tell
not a
you,
requirement.
here's where I
Do
put them.
we want
Boom,
to
boom, boom.
make that a requirement? Could we take that down to 2 or 3, or not put a number, I mean, of course we
Well,
want.
I do like the 5 because.
I do too.
Okay.
If you only have 1 or 2 places and it's not where most of the people are.
Yeah, because we're such a small city, it's not, we just don't
Yeah.
have that many
Right.
As long as you include the digital as one.
Well, we're a small city, but we were probably even smaller in 1940, and
Yeah.
people thought it was a good idea and was doable.
Post
Yeah.
it up to the general
Well,
store.
for the people who don't have access to like the internet and stuff,
Yeah.
that's important to them.
Sure.
Public
I
library.
mean, I'm fine with the 5,
Okay.
if you guys are too.
I mean, you could literally put up a signpost on the corner of First and Second Street and say, you know, this is a notice.
Yeah.
So there's no, it's not
Yeah.
like someone's gonna say, well, you, all you have to, then it's up to you to document.
Yeah.
And the best way is also take a picture. Say, here's, you know, I took this picture on this date at this
Right.
time that shows that I posted it.
Yeah, In those days, they probably put them on telephone poles.
They probably did.
Okay.
Telephone poles or streetcars. or
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay, so we have a motion on the
Yeah,
table.
there's only one
other.
other change to that section, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry,
Really
oh, I'm
easy.
sorry, there's another change.
The very last clause in the, where it says, in matters of municipal concerns, they just said, why don't you just end the sentence after inform the general public? And I agree. The
Okay.
words in matters of municipal concerns is,
Okay, so then I amend my motion to include that final, because didn't I already make a motion on that?
You did,
Accept the
and
language?
didn't somebody already second it?
Yes.
That way?
I did.
Yeah, okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
now I did have, again, I may have left it off my list, but 16.08, very next section is talking about the subpoena power. And they just asked a question about that. Some communities put the subpoena power in there, you know, where city council can subpoena. Many don't. It's rarely used.
Why would they-
The Attorney General, I'm getting that, the Attorney General asked, he said, I mean, you don't, your city doesn't use this for city council can just subpoena anybody they want to come. Like if they say, we want Governor Whitmer here, we issue a subpoena and Governor Whitmer has to show up at the Clawson City Hall on Tuesday night, or else it'd be contempt of court. I said, no, I think when you read this in context, it's intended to be only when the council is conducting like a quasi judicial or administrative type hearing, which is generally where you would issue subpoenas, and they just thought that wasn't maybe as clear.
We have certainly had a
As
lot
it
of
could be.
quasi-judicial activity in this council in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and the negative.
Or we can take it out altogether. We don't have to have a subpoena power. I mean,
I don't think they need subpoena
I mean, the
power.
city
How much
attorney,
often does
the
this
city
happen?
attorney always has the ability to go to court to request a subpoena for any type of
Yes.
judicial proceedings.
I do have one question. It's like, if they had subpoena power and they subpoena me to come and speak on some matter, and I'm like, the heck with it, I got something better to do, or I just want to go. Could they have me arrested if I don't show up?
What they would do,
Sounds like they do.
what they
You
would
could take the
probably, well,
fifth.
the procedure probably would be, the city attorney would go to court and get the court to put the courts back. So basically, you'd now get a second subpoena from the court, or a
Okay.
court order saying, Joe Marucci, you will honor the subpoena.
Got it.
Compelled to appear.
And then if you don't honor it, then you get a ride to the jail until you decide you will honor it.
Fair enough, but yeah, you don't see the constable coming and get me because the mayor said, you need to come to City Hall.
But don't worry, Joe, they can't make you talk.
No, but that was the concern that the Attorney General's office has.
We are on the
what you said.
agenda for tonight's meeting, so it should be.
Yeah, it's like if council just wants to have people show up at the meeting, can they just issue subpoenas? Yeah, bring in the governor,
Yeah, that's really interesting that
bring
that's
in
in there.
bring in,
Sodium pentothal.
you know, bring in whoever. And it's like, no, we're not gonna do that. But if the thought is, you know what, let's not even
I was like, I don't like this.
go
Yeah,
there, just
I-
take that
I
power out,
agree.
we can
Like, I
do
don't like
that.
this at all.
I'm good with that.
Me too.
That'd be the easiest way.
I make a motion that we take the recommendation, the Attorney General remove the power subpoena
I vehemently second that.
from the city council.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. That is 9.
That's super weird. Why would anybody want to go to court? Then why would you want to take anybody to court?
Lots of
I have a feeling that's not an unusual provision.
I've seen it in some, I would say the minority of cities, it's something that goes way back, and I think it even has some semblance to, way back we didn't have quite the separation that we do now, where the
Right.
courts are an entirely separate branch. I mean, you had
Yeah.
municipal, you had the mayor and the council, you had the municipal judge, you had the municipal constable.
And you, right, a constable,
And
yeah.
so you did more things in-house.
Dog catcher.
Whereas now we have, through the county and the state, we have the separate judicial branch, and that's where the
It was kind of
subpoenas
merged
and the
together, it was all,
court orders, yeah. But it was simpler time back then
Church.
where home rule, we probably had more home rule back then than we really do now. We talk like we have home rule now, but back then they really did. Each city was like its own state.
The sheriff, pastor, and judge were all the same person. you know.
Well, in some cases it was,
Sure.
exactly. Or if not the same person, well, my brother is the constable, and my uncle here's the judge. And you're in trouble,
Can I see you? Oh, you better be in church.
and you're in big trouble, boy.
Okay, so moving on.
Moving on. We're getting out of control.
17.01, we had a motion on that, was our second motion, was included in that. And the only two left are 17.02 and then the first one, 4.02.
Let's see, 17.02, I think was a very easy one.
They'd like us to add to our charter a provision similar to what is in the Charter Commission's resolution to adopt proposed charter.
Here's what I said, so 1701, you said you already did?
Yeah.
In 1702, I didn't necessarily agree to it, but I don't think there's any harm in adding, remember I didn't bring the resolution with me, but we basically said we resolved to adopt this proposed charter, and we further resolved that this shall be stated on the ballot, and we stated the ballot question. They basically want us to take that, put it in the charter too.
Okay.
Would it be
I don't think it's really necessary, but again, it's one of those path of least resistance type of things. They like to see it. It's gonna help us get approved. Doesn't do any harm to put it in there. I'd rather say it twice than not at all.
Right. So I need you
And it's not in there now, obviously, so.
Right, because we put it in the
Right,
resolution.
I'll move it.
Okay.
As-
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All
The
right.
very last one is 4.02.
I did have one,
Oh,
two things.
another one, okay.
18.08. It's just adding a sentence. Actually, two things. So right now, 18.08, and this is one of our transitional things, which right now says the charter shall take effect and become the law of the city, is the charter of the city of Clausen for all purposes on January 1, 2024. So two things. We need to add something at the beginning of that that will say, except as otherwise provided in this charter, comma, this charter shall take effect and become the law, blah, blah, blah. And the reason we need to do that is because we do have a couple of provisions, like going from 5 council members to 7 council members, that isn't going to take effect
That's a good point.
on January 1. And the Attorney General just thought, that's a little confusing, so why don't you just clarify that with that phrase?
Okay.
And then they wanted us to add a sentence, a second sentence to that just simply says, the vote required. The adoption of the charter shall require a majority of those voting on the question.
Is that in addition to 1701?
This is 18.08.
No, I understand, but it just seems like we addressed it in 1701.
I'm sorry, you know what? You are right. I got my note in the wrong spot. Strike that.
Got it.
So just that one change. It's been that kind of day. I really
It's okay, I
apologize,
feel
people
it.
being
No
scattered.
reason
I
to.
just-
No, that's why we're all here.
That's right.
That's
That's
why-
said better twice than not at all.
Too many things going on today.
Okay, so Madam
So
Chair, I
4.02.
move to make the recommended changes to section 1808 about the effective date of the charter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, the very last question, unless we have anything else, is the 4.02.
4.02 is what I suggested, we need to go back to what we said, the way 4.02 read in version 7. And if you don't have that in front of you, I can just tell you real quick what it says. And that is that instead of striking, as we do the first, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, instead of striking the first 4 sentences of the current charter, we leave those in.
Could you read those, please? I don't have them in front of me.
Oh, yeah. So the way 4.02 will read is it'll say, the mayor shall hold office for a term of 2 years from the second Monday following the regular city election at which the mayor was elected. Each city council member shall hold office for a term of 4 years from the second Monday following the regular election at which they were elected. 2 city council members shall be elected every 2 years. The terms of office of other elected officers of the city shall be as stated in appropriate chapters of this charter pertaining to such offices. And then we added a sentence there that all elected officers shall hold office until their successors have been elected and qualified. And then there'd be a second paragraph, a new paragraph that we originally had there, and then we moved it to the back. And that will read, commencing with the 2025 regular election and thereafter, the mayor shall hold office for a term of 4 years, period. At the 2025 regular election, 4 council members shall be elected, and the 3 highest vote getters shall hold office for a term of 4 years, and the 4th highest vote getter shall hold office for a term of 2 years, period. Commencing with the 2027 regular election and thereafter, 3 council members shall be elected every 2 years and shall hold office for a term of 4 years. So we kind of went through this and vetted it a while back, but we just moved that paragraph I just read to the last chapter 18, and the Attorney General finds it was more confusing for us to do that than to put it in 4.02.
Sure, I'll see both ways.
The bottom 2 paragraphs. Go ahead, Joe.
I want to put, John, there's a sentence in there that I didn't catch when we went through this, about all other elective officers have to be elected when it's appropriate. That's a paraphrase. There are no other elective officers.
Yeah, we can probably strike that.
Right,
In
I don't
fact,
think there's a
we
need for it,
did.
'cause I would, if I saw that, I'm like, okay.
Because you're right, there are no others.
Right. Other than that, if that's what the AG says and
Yeah.
we agree, I'm in favor.
Actually, when I look at version 7, I did have that stricken. And then I just want to see what, okay, all Brad is doing that is different from what I read is he's adding one more sentence at the front. And he's actually pulling this from the back of the charter. He's saying the elective officers of the city who hold office on the effective date of this charter shall continue to hold their office until their terms under the previous charter expire or their offices become vacant. And then he goes on, commencing with the 2025 regular election. And then,
Do you think there's a need for that sentence? I'd hate to introduce something that the AG has not seen.
we have it already in chapter 18 in our transitional provisions. And what Brad is doing is he's moving. Now, the AG has not asked for that,
And they've seen it in the last section, in the transition.
Correct.
I say leave it as we originally had it without that sentence. Otherwise, why would we have it twice? And I don't want to go back and start removing it from the transitional section and putting it up there. If they liked our language the way we had it in version 7 or whatever, I say let's go with it.
Yeah, I mean, we have it right, if you look at the new charter, section 18.09, that's where Brad lifted it from.
Let's do it the easy way.
So, yeah, I was left with the impression, although I don't ever hold them to it because there's nothing that prevents them from coming back with, oh, we forgot to mention this, forgot to mention that kind of thing. But I was definitely left with the impression that we address these things, as we had a very thorough discussion, that we are well on our way to the finish line.
Do we need a motion on that last item?
Yes, we need to.
I'll move that we restore the language as originally written in draft number 7 regarding the additional, regarding the mayor and the 2 new seats, and to remove the one sentence regarding all other elective officers.
Yes.
I'll support.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I covered all of mine. Like I said, it took a while to go through it because you're only seeing what ended up have come back. And I think most of them are minor, although clearly we had to discuss some of them, but there was just enough of them. Just wanted to keep you folks, or you guys got a lot of sweat equity invested in this, so I don't want to be making changes without you knowing what they are. We talked about a lot of other things, but like I said, we talked through it, and it was all good. And as you can see, the worst nightmare we have is that we're going to do these things and they're just going to like flat out reject some major thing saying that this conflicts with state law or a case or whatever. Absolutely none of that. All these things that we talked about here, I think we'd all agree are fairly minor, and some of them are downright trivial in the sense, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but they're just more like wordsmithing. So like the one in the stream of retail trade, changing that to the stream of commerce. It's like, okay, that's that really doesn't impact anything that we're doing here. It does sound better. We all agree it's a better word choice, but it's a very non-substantive minor change.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you getting this out to us and very quickly so we could go over it. And we were glad that it was a fruitful meeting.
And with the changes that we made here, my next step is I'm going to take our master red line version. I'm going to make the further changes that we discussed. I'll redline those, and I'm also going to highlight those, which I'll share with you, and the Attorney General asked for it as well. So you'll have the whole thing plus these changes here that we discussed tonight will be highlighted where you'll be able to very easily pick them up. And hopefully we won't be marking this up a whole lot more, or else it's going to be all red line.
Okay. Unless anybody else has anything else, the next on the agenda is commissioner comments.
I was just gonna say, because we're moving on to public comment next, and I know we talked about this before, we have the tendency, because we don't get a lot of public comment, to like engage, but just as a reminder, generally public comment is the speaker gets 4 minutes, and we are not generally supposed to reply to the speaker, we are to listen to what they have to say.
Yep. And before we do public comment, just wanted to make sure everybody knew we were going to give an update at the city council tonight, but because we were here tonight, we decided that we would not do that. So they took us off the agenda so that we can do it on a date where we're we would all be able to be there.
Oh, and that, it's helpful too, so we made a number of changes here that you'll want to
For sure.
maybe incorporate as part of your presentation to council.
Yeah. Okay, so any other comments? No? Are we going to meet next week?
Next week is the regular meeting, right?
What?
Is there a need?
I don't think you're gonna have this done by next week, are you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll have it done, but it won't be any different than what we
Okay,
just
yeah.
discussed. I mean, I will get it done and I will send it to you, but I don't expect to have any
Okay.
further feedback or changes for you before next Tuesday night.
All right.
Hopefully,
So-
there won't be any further changes, but we'll see.
And you don't have a meeting set anyways. I mean,
No, no.
changes are not gonna come from you unilaterally.
No, I'm gonna send it to them before the end of the week,
Right.
and whether they look at it right away or whether they look at it a week later, you know, it's up to them. I was surprised they tackled
The
it
6th,
as quickly as they did, but
26th.
doesn't mean it'll
They were
continue.
ready.
We must have been slow.
No, I think
Okay.
we're way ahead of the game.
So next meeting, June 6th,
Yeah.
There.
that okay with everybody? Okay.
June 6th?
June 6th.
Well, our regular meeting is the 13th.
No, 13th.
13th.
The 6th is the city council. Do we
Okay,
want to go to the,
so-
do we want to present the city council on the 6th?
You can't. We haven't got everything done yet.
Well, by then,
So you guys wanna say 13th?
we might.
I mean, that's for the regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, like you guys
But
just wanna
we're,
meet.
we're giving an update, right? We're giving an update.
Yes,
And we're just, it's not wrong to give them an update saying, here's where we stand, we've made some changes,
that's correct.
and it's in the
Yeah,
AG's
because we
hands.
want them to know.
So all we're doing
where
is giving
at.
an update.
We don't have to do a big, huge presentation or anything like that.
It's
So I
right.
just want to give them an update.
Right?
So
Okay.
we can find out if the 6th would be a good date to do that. That's no problem.
So, on that point, I guess I have a question. We've made the changes, most of ones that the AG has suggested or, and you've concurred with. Do we need to pass another motion incorporating all these changes and?
I think we will eventually, once we know we've got the final
Got it.
product, we'll bring that back, gift wrapped, and probably do another resolution just to formally adopt version, whatever we called it, 10.1, or whatever.
That-
But let's wait until we know
Understood.
we're at the final point.
Yeah, because otherwise all we've done is
Otherwise,
adopt,
we're gonna keep bouncing back
Right.
and forth.
and we've only adopted version 10 at this point in time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So our next meeting here is the 13th.
Yep.
Month from now.
And we'll plan for the 6th. I'll let you know if that's a go. And then anybody who can go, you can be there. That'd be great.
And certainly if there's any major new developments or curveballs thrown our way, I will report that immediately, and you can make the call whether we should consider a special meeting in the end. Hopefully,
Okay. Or we can
fingers
wait.
crossed, that's not going to happen.
Has the supplemental appropriation been submitted and approved regarding the additional funds for the current fiscal year? You know?
August was going to check on that, and I have not heard.
Okay,
We were told we don't have to worry about it, but yes, we've not heard that, yes, it's been approved.
I don't believe we have to worry, I just want to make sure that it's being done.
Right, we want to make sure that it's taken
Right.
care of. Okay. Okay, anybody else? No? Okay.
All right.
So, public comment?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so, yeah, you'll have 4 minutes.
Could you make it closer here, because that way you're picked up on the microphone?
Sit down right here.
Sit right here, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to do it in 4 minutes. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak here. I love this city, and I'm grateful for the conscientiousness of each of you, as always. I can tell you a good heart. I wish that it would be possible for your counselors to include those who have served elected office. You're well represented by city managers, attorneys, but mayors, past city council members, or even current ones seem to be in short supply for these deliberations, not because you have sought that, just the nature of this situation. Having gone door to door myself, I believe that The elected officials have a keen perspective on what the residents are going through and the process of serving their community. Some may know well in that endeavor what it feels like to be a very well-rewarded rubber stamp, and others may know what it is to be a disrespected chair warmer. It's sad to see, but I believe you could find people who could talk to you about that just next door right now. It would seem that there are two things which your current counselors, well-intentioned and certainly of excellent character, did not mention to you that I still don't understand why have not been discussed. In November 2021, at her last meeting, Madam Mayor Reese and the city attorney made a maneuver to appoint or to ask for someone's resignation and to reappoint them 6 seconds later in the attempt to extend that person's tenure for another 2 years until the next election. I don't know why we think as a commissioner, as you as a commissioner don't think that would not happen again and should not be provisioned for in the new charter to prevent that from happening again. A cool-off provision that prevents that seems self-evident in value. I also noticed that nepotism is strongly, protected against for the city manager, but not for the city attorney. It seems quite clear why it would be bad for a mayor to be appointing family members to their positions, but I don't understand why you don't extend that concern to the city attorney or the city clerk. And then lastly, I believe that it's been discussed by some of you, the 7-member council, 3 city managers, 2 sitting here and 1 sitting in there actively now, have warned against it. I also am concerned about it as a member of the community. Men and women of character, integrity, and competence are sadly not in abundance, and it takes great sacrifice to do that. I would ask that you consider giving those few who are really prepared to contribute a chance to succeed and not have the voice of those elected be diluted. It just seems such a problem. Promotion of competitiveness is never a bad thing. Madam Chair, I recognize the extraordinary nature of this request, but I believe you have the power to change the agenda to include discussion on these points since they were not included. I would have brought them up had the opportunity been given to me to make these comments as part of the agenda, but someone, and I don't think it was any of you, didn't put that on the agenda. Deliberately or not deliberately, I can't say. But thank you again for the opportunity to speak here and for serving our communities. You bring us all such pride. I'm very proud to share this event with my family living in other states. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can respond if we want to, I just should let him say his piece, which we did, so. Does anybody want to respond? I mean, just to address the elephant in the room, I think we without specifically saying you can't resign and then be reappointed, we did try to prevent that. I mean, a lot of this has been about preventing that situation from happening, which I think we've done by being more clear on when people take office and by not creating as many holes in the council, by not requiring people to resign to run for mayor. If we had not required 2 council members to resign in order to run for mayor, we wouldn't have had that opening to begin with. For that to happen, we wouldn't have had those temporary council members on there. So God, I'm trying to think what else do we, like, I feel like it's not specifically addressed in that like one chunk, like you're saying, like you can't do this, but it's addressed in any number of ways to make the process run the way it's supposed to. So, and the advice we got is, yes, that happened, and that was wild and crazy and unexpected, but we can't, create a living document that, this one's been around for 80+ years now, because of one wacky thing that happened. which I do take to heart. Like, yes, of course, we want to prevent like malfeasance of any kind and crazy things like that, but like, that's not the norm. Like, that didn't happen until then and hasn't happened since, and we have no reason to expect that, you know, the things we've put in place to be more clear on the procedures would allow something like that to happen again. I want to look into the nepotism though, because you're right, I mean, nepotism,
I thought we added.
I'm rereading it now.
We
It says
added-
relatives by blood
Like, I can't
blood
think off the
marriage
top
of
of
the
my
mayor,
head.
any city council member, or the city manager
I didn't think
within the
we
second
did.
degree.
No, and it's
No.
because the city attorney is,
The
he's
contractor.
an independent contractor.
He's not
Yeah.
elected.
He's not elected official, he doesn't vote on anything.
We don't have any
He's hired.
control over the city.
He doesn't control,
Well,
he
we talked,
doesn't.
okay, maybe it was, we talked
Yeah.
about that.
But it's
we-
still,
yeah,
you're
we
still
did talk
hiring
about it.
someone that, you know, it's,
But I mean, that's ultimately up to,
I think maybe we
The
kind of
council.
decided.
The city
that-
council.
We did, also, we decided
That's the city
something
council's
about-
call,
We said
right?
something
Right.
about nepotism,
Yes.
and we made an agreement about nepotism, but I can't remember what we said about nepotism, what we
There's a
decided.
section.
about
What
it.
Well,
section
in
is
a
it?
city like this, if you say you can't hire anybody's brother-in-law, no one will ever get hired for anything, I think that's kind of a problem. You know, so yes, of course, we don't want to be, you know, making sweetheart
What
deals
section
and
was
hiring
nepotism
family
in?
members, but at the same time, if you completely prohibit it, then you might also paint yourself into a corner. So that's something that, yes, the hiring of the city attorney is done by council. They have the power, and again, if there's more of them, it would stand to reason that it would be much more difficult for somebody to try to.
Forgive me for
Sneak up
intruding.
family-
It's
no,
out of
please.
order for me to say this, but I just want you to know. The reason I bring it up is the previous mayor established a 5-year contract for the current city attorney and positioned his brother on the planning commission currently. There's nothing the city can do about it now. Nothing the city mayor or council can do about it now. And it's intimidating for me to be serving on the planning commission.
Sure.
Because I'm up against not only another commissioner, but his brother, who is the city prosecutor.
Right.
So I just want you to know that it may be meaningless to you that they are a independent contractor,
Right.
but it is an incredible thumb that could be put on the scale. And I'm not directly implying anything, but I want you to just have that perspective.
Yeah, okay,
No, that's
thank you.
great perspective, thank you.
I was on the planning commission.
Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
With respect to, can I just say, with respect to, you brought up the city clerk, and I know there's provisions that can't be appointed to a position or hired if you're a member, from family member of the city council and the city manager. But the call for the clerk, it's not prevented if the clerk's son, spouse, whomever could be, but that call is always on the city manager.
Yes.
And so then, you know, if it happens, and if it's done appropriately, and he or she is the best person, maybe smells a little bit, but we'd live with it. But it's not, we haven't stopped it.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, then it could be, you know, a spouse of a guy who works at the DPW, or spouse of a woman who's in the treasurer's office, or whatever the case. And we didn't address that because we didn't think it would be a problem. So just, like you said, it is for mayor and council. People don't get fired because their husband or wives get elected.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that was clear, but there's no prevention of the clerk or the police chief or someone having a relative hired, assuming it's done clearly, openly, and the best person is selected, but it doesn't get away. Bad actors can always come forth, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to prevent against unless you start, you know, being very specific about these relationships.
It
and
was
these
just a
people.
point of order.
No, that's a
Yeah,
great
I-
point, because it's super important, especially in a town like this,
Yes,
you know?
no, I don't think you've singled anyone out, but it's a legitimate point that,
Yeah.
that same exists for the police chief, the DPW director, potentially even a guy or a girl who works in an office, that, you know, their spouse is not prevented from being hired, but that's a call the city manager would make.
It really comes down to the strength of the council hiring the right person to be the city manager,
Right.
and that person to carry out their duties to the best of their ability without any sort of
Right.
ethical problems.
Without fear or
So-
favor.
Right. Which, you know, I think we have to assume that, you know, we're gonna do the right thing.
I agree. That's all I have.
Because they don't, that's why we
Okay,
have
I
elections.
just had, one clarification. I heard that you two, the past city managers were against the 7-member council.
I was not in favor of it, still am not, but I'm not going to vote no. And on the 99% of the
Okay.
charter, I'm in absolute agreement. Maybe a 99.5. I would prefer to stay at 5. And I thought there was no reason to, on that one, okay, I'd win on that one point that the vote would be 8-1 potentially, or 7-1, or maybe 7-2. I thought, okay, I could vote that way. It's not like, oh, I wasn't afraid of it, I prefer to stay at 5, I don't think it's been a problem. I've seen 5 in action. But we won 7 of us wanted 9, or excuse me, wanted 7. I voted for it.
I feel the same way.
Anybody else? So we can adjourn if somebody wants to.
I'll move it. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'll second your motion. She moved it, I interrupted her. I'll second.
Don't interrupt me on that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and again,